Today on NewsWatch, America says goodbye to a conservative hero. What the death of Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia could mean for the future of our nation. Plus, she dreamed of love, but as the decades went by, her hopes began to drift out to sea, until the day a wave brought her this soulful surfer. And how the Bible inspired this chef to create a unique taste of the Middle East. Thanks for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Caitlin Burke. America lost a giant over the weekend. Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia was a conservative hero, guided by his Catholic faith and trust in the Constitution. His death during a presidential election year emphasizes the importance of the race. White House correspondent Jennifer Wishon brings us the story.
As Justice Antonin Scalia's family and the nation prepare to lay him to rest, a judicial jostle has already begun in Washington and on the campaign trail. The 2016 presidential candidates are already drawing lines over what should happen next. Republican candidates say President Obama should not nominate a Supreme Court justice in an election year.
Barack Obama would ram down our throat a liberal justice.
It's called delay, delay, delay.
Despite his lame duck status, President Obama says it's his duty to name a new justice.
I plan to fulfill my constitutional responsibilities to nominate a successor in due time.
A plan both remaining Democrats running for president support.
It is the job of the President of the United States to appoint, nominate members to the Supreme Court, and the Senate confirms.
Barack Obama is President of the United States until January 20th, 2017.
But Republican Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says the Senate will not confirm the president's nominee. Instead, the body will wait to consider whoever President Obama's successor nominates. Scalia's death sets up a referendum in this presidential election on the future direction of the Supreme Court. And with 3 justices over the age of 75, it's likely the next president will fill other vacancies during his or her tenure in the White House.
Place your left hand on the Bible.
Both sides agree that the man appointed to the court nearly 3 decades ago by President Ronald Reagan was brilliant, larger than life, and perhaps the most important justice of his era.
His impact on the court was incomparable. As Ronald Reagan was to the presidency, so Justice Scalia was to the court.
His example of judicial conservatism survives, along with his legal interpretation that uses the meaning of the words of the Constitution at the time they were written by the founders. His writings on the High Court were admired by the greatest legal minds and ordinary Americans, like when he accused his colleagues of engaging in interpretive jiggery-pokery when they ruled in favor of Obamacare. Scalia also held fast to his devout Catholic faith.
He was a man of deep, personal Christian faith.
Now without him, the court will confront a heavy load this year in cases that could result in a 4-4 tie.
Some of the most important cases we're facing as a nation are before this court this term. Religious freedom, abortion, immigration.
Scalia, known as Nino to family and friends, leaves behind his wife Maureen, 9 children, many grandchildren, and a tremendous judicial and legal legacy. Jennifer Wishon, CBN News, Washington.
Joining us now with more is Brad Jacob from the Regent University Law School. He studied under Justice Scalia at University of Chicago Law School. Mr. Jacob, what can you tell us about Justice Scalia as a person and a professor?
Well, he was a fine man. He was a very faithful Catholic, a family man, 9 children, and just a very jovial, funny guy. Always liked, both in the classroom and on the court, always liked the joke. I have memories of being in the Supreme Court for oral arguments, and Nino would try to crack up the crowd with some kind of a deadpan one-liner, and Chief Justice Rehnquist was very much a order guy, and he would pound his gavel and glare at him, but they're great fun. He was a good man.
How does his influence still affect you today?
Well, probably no one has affected my teaching as a law professor, both in substance and in style, than Antonin Scalia. He was the best teacher I ever had in my life. Not all brilliant people are good teachers, but he was. And so not only do I agree with his approach to the Constitution, but I've so much enjoyed the way he tried to make the classroom a fun experience that I've tried to model that myself.
Now, Justice Scalia is being hailed as a conservative intellectual giant. How did he affect the direction of the Supreme Court and the nation?
You know, whether that's a true characterization depends a lot on what conservative means, because not all of his great opinions were conservative opinions. He was more of a liberal, as we usually use the word on things like criminal justice, protections for accused, for people in criminal situations. He joined the majority to strike down a law against burning the flag as free speech. What was key was not whether he was conservative or liberal. What was key was his approach, which is to say, let's look at what the Constitution of the United States actually says. Instead of justices making up these 3-part tests and 4-part tests, Roe versus Wade with its infamous trimesters, you can do this in this trimester, none of which is in the Constitution. Scalia significantly moved at the Supreme Court in the direction of saying, our job is to look at the words and the history of this document and do what it says instead of what we want.
How will his absence from the court affect upcoming cases like the Obamacare contraception mandate?
Well, there's no way to know for sure because none of us knew for sure what was going to happen in any of these cases. But we've now got an 8-justice court, and even numbers are always bad because they leave open the possibility of a tie. So in any case where Scalia would have been the 5th vote, we now presumably have 4-4 ties. When the court splits 4-4, it's as if they never heard the case. The ruling in the lower court, which is typically a court of appeals, is affirmed, but there's no precedent that applies anywhere else in the country. It's just that case ends and the lower ruling stands. So there may be a bunch of those. There may be cases that don't get a definitive resolution. I wouldn't even be surprised if Chief Justice Roberts tries to drop some of the big cases and not decide them at all until he gets back to a full complement of 9 justices.
How could this upcoming battle over Scalia's replacement affect the presidential election?
Well, this has now become a hot potato for everybody. You know, the president has said he's going to put someone on the court. Several key senators and the Republican presidential candidates are all saying that this should wait a year until we have a new president and let that person appoint the next justice. The president can certainly nominate someone, and I expect he will. The Senate, I believe the Senate has a duty to act, although many people believe the Senate can simply stall for a year. I think they have a constitutional duty to act, but they can always vote down. If the president sends them a nominee and they say, no, we don't want this person, we vote no. And so it's going to be a huge issue for everybody. Both parties are going to be trying to make as much hay out of this as they can and hopefully get a justice that they are comfortable with.
All right, Mr. Jacob, thanks for being with us. The Republican presidential candidates had a moment of silence for Justice Scalia at the start of their debate Saturday night. Most agreed his replacement should be nominated by the next president. Then the debate heated up and turned a bit wild in South Carolina. Gary Lane has some of the highlights.
Saturday night's GOP debate was arguably the liveliest yet. The gloves were off. Donald Trump took on Cruz and Bush. Cruz took on the Donald and Rubio. Things got a bit personal when Trump went after Jeb Bush's brother and family. Bush fired back.
While Donald Trump was building a reality TV show, my brother was building a security apparatus to keep us safe, and I'm proud of what he did.
The World Trade Center came down during your brother's reign. Remember that.
Marco Rubio defended President Bush.
The World Trade Center came down because Bill Clinton didn't kill Osama bin Laden when he had the chance to kill him.
Cruz took on Trump over Planned Parenthood.
For most of his life, he has described himself as very pro-choice and as a supporter of partial birth abortion. Right now, today, as a candidate, he supports federal taxpayer funding for Planned Parenthood. I disagree with him on that. That's a matter of principle, and I'll tell you.
You are the single biggest liar. You probably are worse than Jeb Bush.
And Cruz criticized Rubio for his previous positions on immigration reform.
Marco went on Univision in Spanish and said he would not rescind President Obama's illegal executive amnesty on his first day in office.
For a number of weeks now, Ted Cruz has just been telling lies. Right. He lied about Ben Carson in Iowa. He lies about Planned Parenthood. He lies about marriage. He's lying about all sorts of things, and now he makes things up.
Carson and Kasich tried to remain positive and above the fray, addressing problems in the American economy.
Bernie Sanders and people like Hillary Clinton and blame it on the rich. They say those evil rich people, if we take their money, we can solve the problem. It's not the evil rich people. It's the irresponsible evil government.
First thing we have to do is grow the economy. And I know the formula because I was chairman in Washington when we balanced the budget and created so many jobs, and the same we've been able to do in Ohio.
With less than a week to go before the South Carolina primary, the Republican candidates leave the debate energized. And with polls showing Trump in the lead, much of this battle may be for second place. But as Iowa showed us this election year, there may be more surprises to come. Gary Lane, CBN News.
A Russian airstrike destroyed a makeshift clinic in Syria supported by an international aid group, according to activists and officials. A spokesperson from Doctors Without Borders said the airstrike killed and wounded several people. It's been reported that all members of the medical team inside the structure are believed to be dead. Rescue crews are now working to remove the rubble and search for survivors. A historic Christian meeting took place Friday, something that hasn't happened in nearly 1,000 years. Pope Francis and Patriarch Kirill, head of the Russian Orthodox Church, met in Havana, Cuba. It's the first time the leader of the Roman Catholic Church has met with a high-ranking Orthodox leader since the church's split in the year 1054. They came together to talk about the risk that ISIS poses to the Christian community in the Middle East. CBN News spoke with Regent University's Dr. Corney Becker about the significance of the meeting. You can see that interview at our website, cbnnews.com. Well, the U.S. government may have another way of spying on possible suspects, or just about anyone at all for that matter, by getting information out of any device or appliance connected to the internet. Here's how it works. These days, anything from cars to televisions to household appliances like refrigerators to cell phones and more can be connected to the internet. It's called the Internet of Things. And James Clapper, the director of national intelligence, told the Senate that the government could hack into the Internet of Things and get all kinds of information. So your refrigerator could be watching you in the future. The government's plan could easily create new concerns about privacy in the digital age. Coming up, a love story that's sure to warm your heart. How this woman waited almost 50 years and finally found the right guy. Yesterday, Cherie Martin and her husband Ben celebrated their 4th Valentine's Day as a married couple. Cherie waited a long time to find true love, so long, in fact, that with her 50th birthday in sight, she began to doubt if it would ever happen. Wendy Griffith brings us their love story.
Cherie Martin grew up playing on the white sandy beaches near Pensacola, Florida. The daughter of a pastor, Cherie had faith that one day her prince would come.
As I got into my 20s and friend after friend after friend, they were all getting married and my heart would just sink because I really didn't date that much. So I was a little bit of a late bloomer, but still time's passing and you begin to feel like God's passing you by.
Cherie believed God had promised her she would be married, so she continued to hope and to date. But time after time, the relationships would fizzle.
And I would just pray, God, please don't let me be desperate. Please don't let me be desperate. And so I just kept waiting and I kept seeking God. There's a verse in Isaiah that talks about, no more will you be termed forsaken, but your land will be married. And I would cling to verses like that.
By now, Cherie was in her late 40s with no prospects in sight when some friends invited her to a wedding and to meet a surfer named Ben.
And right in the center of the lobby, all by himself, is this gorgeous man in a tuxedo, just standing there. And I'm just, surely this has to be him. Surely this is the guy my friend told me about. So I'm like, hello, ran in and found her and I said, please tell me that's him. And she's like, it is.
The next day, Ben and Cherie saw each other again at church.
And as soon as church is over, this gorgeous guy walks up and says, hi, my name's Ben Martin. So obviously I had caught his eye as well.
Was it love at first sight?
I was definitely attracted to Cherie. And I guess what she's trying to say is, I I was still kind of torn where I was.
What Cherie didn't know was Ben had gone through a painful divorce and was still hurting. What Ben, a surfer and lover of the ocean, didn't know was that Cherie was afraid of the water.
I like to tan, he likes to surf. It works.
But it wasn't all smooth sailing for Ben and Cherie, and the two broke up for several months.
I come from a divorced family, and I never wanted that to be a part of my life. So I really had to let go of there ever being hope of restoration of the first marriage.
Then I said, now look, it has to be me and no one else. I can't play second fiddle. I have to know I have your whole heart. And he said, you're the one. He said, you're the one I want to be with. So for someone to finally say, I am choosing you, it was just like...
Then, in the summer of 2012, after nearly 2 years of dating on and off, Cherie was preparing to celebrate her 50th birthday.
We had not looked at rings. We had not talked about marriage, nothing. And so, but I just kept thinking, wow, it's a big day. And he was asking me what I wanted to do. And I was like, a walk on the beach at sunset. Oh, we had never done that as a couple. We come through the dunes onto the beach. There's a wedding taking place on this side of the beach, and there's a wedding taking place on this side of the beach. No joke. And he looks at me and he says, have you ever thought about a wedding on the beach?
It was there, in the sand dunes on Cherie's 50th birthday, that Ben, a man 9 years younger, professed his love.
Just shared my heart that I loved her and wanted to spend the rest of my life with her. And I asked her if she would like to do the same. And she said yes, as I'm trying to shuffle the ring out of my pocket.
Cherie says the age difference didn't really seem to matter.
I don't know, the Lord just eased all that away. People always say that we don't look like there's that much of an age difference.
Cherie and Ben were engaged on June 2nd and set the wedding date for 5 months later. November 3rd, 2012 finally arrived.
But it was a beautiful, gorgeous day. And right away, it's just like, thank you, God.
So we rented a house out on the beach, and we had our families come out, and the wedding took place right out front.
Cherie says her story is proof that when God gives you a promise, He is faithful to fulfill it, even if it takes a while.
Ask Him to give you a promise about your life, whatever that is, and then hold on to that promise because He will be faithful.
I wanted someone true. And that's what God gave me, the real deal, in Cherie. And like I said, I know my heart is safe with her. And so age is just a number. And she's beautiful. She is gorgeous, and God is good. He who finds a wife finds a good thing.
Wendy Griffith, CBN News, Pensacola, Florida.
Up next, a culinary competition in the heart of Israel. See what's on the menu that could be good enough to become a signature dish at the Waldorf Astoria. Well, Jerusalem is in the news again, but this time for a delicious reason. The Waldorf Astoria there will compete in an elite culinary competition in February. The goal, deliver a kosher signature dish that will place among other Waldorf Astoria signatures like Eggs Benedict, red velvet cake, and Waldorf salad. CBN's Annika Kopp gives us a sneak preview.
Waldorf Astoria Jerusalem's executive chef, Itzik Barak, took his inspiration from the Bible. He hopes his 7-species dish will become the new taste of Waldorf Astoria.
Israel, it's very, very nice country. It's an excellent country. The culinary, it's on the top in Israel.
The 5 competing master chefs come from New Orleans, Orlando, Beijing, Amsterdam, and from right here, the Waldorf Astoria Jerusalem. These chefs will team up with promising young chefs from all over the U.S.
The competition is based on the Rising Star list for the James Beard Foundation, which is like the Oscars of food in the States. They selected 5 chefs, and then they look at the style of food that you cook and pair you up with a chef at a Waldorf Astoria.
Joseph Johnson from Harlem's prestigious Cecil and Minton's restaurants will partner with Barak.
Coming here is seeing the spice markets are very similar to what spices that I use, just really authentic, really bold. So the food of Israel really speaks to me.
But cooking kosher proved to be a challenge.
it's a little bit difficult to understand because you're coming from another world and you don't know about that we have a separate kitchen and things like that.
You're told the kosher kitchen is one way, but really being in the kitchen is another way. I just can't set up my cutting board and work anywhere I want to work. A little bit of a mental change, but really great.
Barak and Johnson are using ingredients listed in the book of Deuteronomy.
In the bulgur salad, we're taking some dates, some ginger, some yuzu, some pears, and then a little bit of olive oil, and really mixing it all nicely together. So it's this nice cold salad with this crusted fish, and then we're gonna garnish it with some nice micros and some fresh zucchini and carrots.
And this definitely had that sort of elevated version of the 7 species. But when I was on CBN before, and we spoke about that these are the 7 superfoods of the Bible. They're not just the 7 species of the land of Israel, but they're superfoods.
Celebrity chef Jamie Geller believes the dish is destined for greatness.
The dish was fantastic. It's the winning dish. I know it. I'm predicting it. It just was incredible because I thought that the plating and the beauty and the execution was totally befitting of a Waldorf.
Despite the tough competition, the chefs are confident.
At the end, we were able to develop a really awesome dish that I would serve in my restaurant, that chef would serve here at the Waldorf Astoria.
I told JJ, everybody should bring his ideas to the dish, his influence, and I think that, guys, we're going to win. We're going to win. Yeah.
Annika Kopp, CBN News, Waldorf Astoria, Jerusalem.
For more great stories about Israel, check out our Jerusalem Dateline webpage. Find it at cbnnews.com. We'll be right back. Operation Blessing is ramping up efforts to fight the Zika virus in Central America and the Caribbean. OB is distributing bed nets to pregnant women, providing prenatal care, and educating the public on infection prevention. They're also using tiny fish called sambo to eat mosquito larvae in standing water around homes and villages. Operation Blessing first announced initial efforts to fight Zika in El Salvador and Haiti and has since added Peru, Guatemala, and Honduras. You can find out more about Operation Blessing by going to their website at ob.org. That's it for now on CBN NewsWatch. You can find more of our exclusive coverage of the issues you care about most at cbnnews.com. And tell us what you think about the stories you've seen here. You can do that on Facebook or on Twitter. We hope you'll join us next time. Have a great day.